Welcome back to America's Forum. I'm J.D. Hayworth. The United States sending surveillance equipment to Nigeria to help in the search for those kidnapped girls. The military hopes to find the hundreds of schoolgirls kidnapped by Islamist terror group Boko Haram last month. A senior official says the manned missions are intelligence and surveillance missions. It comes as new video allegedly from Boko Haram surfaced showing the kidnapped Christian schoolgirls praying to Allah. The terror group's leader saying he would consider trading the girls for imprisoned militants. Joining us now to discuss this situation and other matters of concern worldwide, Pete Hoekstra, my old colleague, the former chairman of the House Select Committee on Intelligence. Pete, we welcome you back for our daily intelligence brief. And let's begin with exactly what we're doing in terms of aiding Nigerian surveillance. Is it going to be primarily planes, or will we also see American drones utilized in this search?
Well, a couple of things going on here, J.D. Number one, this part of Nigeria is an ungoverned area, meaning the central government of Nigeria does not control this area, projecting the rule of law, projecting law enforcement, and those types of things. So, again, it's a safe area for this group and jihadist groups to plan, prepare, and train for attacks and to actually attack. It's not a lot different than parts of Afghanistan and parts of Yemen. And, in that kind of environment, we will send in intelligence assets. I find it very interesting, don't you, that they're saying, well, we're sending in manned assets. Who cares whether the plane or the drone flying above this part of Nigeria is piloted by a human being actually in the aircraft or whether it's being piloted by someone sitting in the Pentagon? Who cares? And actually, in certain environments, you'd rather have drones because they can stay airborne for longer. They can provide more persistent eyes in the sky than what a manned aircraft can do. But what we're doing is we're providing those types of capabilities. I'm sure that we've got analytical support. We've probably got space imagery, taking pictures from space. We probably have airplanes in the sky that can suck up electronic communications. The one thing that we probably don't have that would round out the mix would be actually human intelligence on the ground, which is absolutely essential if you're going to mount some kind of a rescue effort. But all of the other things are in place, and it's my estimation with those kinds of capabilities, we ought to be able to locate at least some of the groups of girls, not necessarily all of them, when we apply this full range of resources.
And that in and of itself is the challenge, pardon the pun, above and beyond surveillance and eyes in the skies. If Boko Haram has in fact taken this large group of girls, broken them into smaller subgroups, you have the dynamic, Pete, where one of those groups could be located, but conceivably it could place those other girls at risk.
Oh, that's exactly right, and that's why you would love to have some human intelligence because you do have the full mix. We found this in the 1990s. The Clinton administration totally gutted human intelligence, and said, hey, we can rely on electronic surveillance and those types of things. But in reality, if you're going to be able to develop effective tools to use against terrorist groups, against other threats to the United States, you need to have human intelligence. We will not have that on the ground here in this part of Nigeria. And I doubt if the Nigerian government has a system in place for human intelligence that has much integrity to it. It's probably been penetrated by the jihadist group.
Well, let's talk about the situation unique to the Nigerian government, obviously where there is not a role for American leadership. And the reason why I rule out American being a part of this equation, we know the leader of Boko Haram has made it clear that the only way he will keep from taking these girls and selling them into slavery is to start trading some of them for fellow militant jihadists. Now, with the government of Nigeria, do you think it is conceivable that that Nigeria would get into the militants for hostages type of trade?
I think I've read some of the statements by various people in their government. Some of them have said, absolutely not. We're not going to get into the negotiation business. Others have said all options are on the table. I think it's really how much pressure this government feels to get the girls back, whether they have any viable options. I think there's going to be limited options. So I think there's a real possibility, if they believe that they can trust this group, that we will see a hostage exchange for the kidnapped girls, and some of these people will be repatriated to their terrorist group. I think there's a possibility that will happen.
Well, we'll have to keep our eye on that. One other notion we've kept our eye on, and Pete, you talked about it specifically with American contractors, the sale of military equipment, materiel to the Russian Federation. Now we're getting reports that France, very active in that same kind of trading, they're moving ahead with a $1 billion contract to sell carriers to Russia. What's the situation involving our ally France and their pending military materiel deal with Russia?
JD, it even gets more bizarre. The French, in the last day or said, hey, we're not going to cancel this sale to the Russians. The U.S. is still buying over $1 billion worth of helicopters from the Russians, then we're going to give them to the Afghanis. We still buy rocket engines from the Russians. You know what the Russians did this morning?
What's
You've
that?
got to be impressed. The Russians said this morning, you know what? We're going to stop selling you rocket engines to launch your satellites into space.
Wow.
So while we will not cancel orders for helicopters, Russian helicopters, where we've got capable helicopters right in our fleet, and they're mothballed that we could give to the Afghans. Instead, we're buying Russian helicopters. We won't cancel that sale. The Pentagon is advocating that those are the best helicopters. The Russians. You got to really just look back and say, I mean, Putin is playing us for fools. We won't cancel it, and the Russians, they're selling us these billion-dollar or multi-million-dollar rockets, and they're saying, hey, guess what? Hey, U.S., we're going to stop selling you these rockets. So, and we've got a lot of these rockets in storage right now for the next couple of years, but they're saying, we're not going to sell you anymore because, you put these sanctions on us. It's unbelievable.
Well,
our leadership is so weak.
It sounds to me like Putin's revenge for the United States winning the space race to the moon with the first lunar landing. Now, here we are, gosh, almost a half century later, and he's saying, sorry, you didn't build rockets. We're not going to sell you anymore. It's, as you've noted before, Putin, in terms of understanding the exercise of power and vulnerabilities that different nation states may have competing with Russia, he is in a class by himself, and I don't say that in any adulatory way, but it's just the truth. Let me move to another story making news. It has to do with the new book concerning Glenn Greenwald. He says the National Security Agency has been putting interception tools in U.S. servers heading overseas, even though the government has warned against using Chinese technology for the same reasons. Do you have a reaction to that alleged revelation?
Well, I think, this is what we've talked about over the last couple of months. This is a steady drip, drip, drip of leaks coming from Snowden and coming from Greenwald. At this point in time, because a lot of his allegations in the past, his leaks in the past have proven to be accurate, you might have some suspicion that this one might also be accurate. But at this point in time, Greenwald could put anything forward, and people would be inclined to believe it. The second thing is, if the Chinese have this capability, and, our intelligence chairman and ranking member and others have said Huawei, the Chinese company, has been doing this to servers that they were shipping to the United States, it's unlikely that the U.S. wouldn't have that capability. The only difference in a lot of this stuff is everybody's got the same capabilities. some people can just do it a whole lot better than others. So I can't confirm or deny that the U.S. has that capability, and what we could or could not do with the private sector is much more restricted by legal requirements than what it would be in China. It's not unrealistic to assume that the U.S. has the capability to do that. The real question is whether we actually did or not.
Pete Hoekstra, we always appreciate your perspective, your analysis with our daily intelligence brief. We thank you again and look forward to our next visit. So, what about it? Servers with the capability to do some, quote, work overseas. Your reaction to that, why don't you tweet us your comments at Newsmax TV, #AmericasForum.